This Volvo isn't turbocharged. It's kind of weird. Interesting. What's up, guys? It's Drifts and Lifts here, and welcome back to the Drifts and Lifts Epic Volvo Drift YouTube channel. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button, you make sure to right now, because all the Volvo gravy you could ever ask for is being poured on your chest, and you're okay with it. Alright guys, so today we're going to do just a basic video. I apologize, nothing too interesting is going to happen today, but as you guys can see, we got Miss Huff in my garage ready for some work. So I want to prep this thing for some snow drifting for you guys. We're planning on like going up into the mountains and filming like an epic video. So I actually went to a plastic store today. It's like called Wellington Plastics, and that's where I get my plexiglass. Because as you guys can see, there's actually no windows in Miss Huff. The only window that's working is the driver's side. So if I'm going to go up into the mountains in the freezing cold and try to look for some snow, I'm going to need some windows, or else I'm going to die in here. So the plan is to get some plexiglass, and we're gonna silicone it in. We're gonna make our own kind of plexi window setup here. Then at least I'll be hidden from the snow, and I'm gonna be all good that way. So a couple little things I want to do to Miss Huff. This season, as you guys know, I did a lot of drifting in this car, and the front suspension took quite a beating. So as you guys can see from the title of the video, the title is How to Replace Your Inner Tie Rods on a Volvo 740, or I believe that's what it's going to be. So I'll show you guys quickly here. I hope there's enough light. Give me a sec. I'm actually going to crank up the light on the GoPro here. Okay, so if we look at this tie rod, let's take a good look in here. I'll try to move this. As you guys can see in there, there's a bunch of play. So this tie rod's pretty bad. The other side is actually a lot worse even. There's just a crap load of play on these inner tie rods. As you can see, the ball is like shifting around in there. So that when you're driving the car, that'll give you sometimes the alignment will kind of tweak out this way, and then your car will pull this way, and it's going to cause a bunch of weird problems in the alignment. So I have two brand new tie rods sitting over here. I got these from Rock Auto. They're nice and cheap. I think I paid like $9 a tie rod or something, man. Like, Rock Auto is the shit. I'm not too sure the quality, but they are the same exact tie rod as we're using right here. I'm going to show you guys how it's done. It's actually, like, I know it's a pretty simple task, but I remember when I was like first getting into cars and stuff, and I was like, how the heck do you replace an inner tie rod? Because, you know, it's just kind of, unless you've done it before or seen somebody do it, you might not know how to do it. So like I said, super easy process. I'm going to go through it with you guys right now. The cool thing about Miss Huff is it has these aftermarket Kapell-Henke quick steer roll center correctors on it. So as you guys can see, the tie rod isn't in the stock knuckle location. It's actually in a bunch, and it actually drops the tie rod pickup downwards, because when you lower your car, the tie rods, they start to crank up like this, right? So this lowers it, and it helps with bump steer. I've done a video on these before, so you guys can check that out. If you look back in my videos, I did like a review video on the Kapell-Henke knuckle corrector, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so yeah, as we can see, we got tie rod placed. So let's replace these right now. So how we're gonna do it is, we're gonna do it as if we want to keep our factory alignment, or keep the alignment how it was. So I guess I'll start right here. So here is the outer tie rod. Here's the locking nut for the outer tie rod right here. So what you're gonna do, if you wanna keep the same alignment, this is assuming that you have the exact same tie rods as, like, say you got a replacement tie rod that's the exact same as the one you're taking out. This will work for that. So what you're gonna wanna do is crack this nut right here. We're just going to loosen that off, and I believe we can actually leave the tie rod end in the knuckle, now that I think of it. I'll be honest, guys, this is actually the first time I've replaced tie rods, inner tie rods, in a Volvo, like while the suspension setup is still hooked up. Last time I replaced them, the rack was out of the car, so it's a little bit of a different story. But now that I look at it, I don't see a reason why we couldn't just leave the knuckle, or leave the outer tie rod in the knuckle, and then we'll just thread it out. So we're gonna crack this nut right here. So you're just gonna wanna crack that ever so slightly if you wanna keep the same same setting that your tie rods had before. So just, I already had it loosened from last night. I was messing around with this, so crack it just slightly. All right, so the next step is, here's a little bit of a tricky one, and this is what I was wondering when I first did this. So if we look on this tie rod end, these are threaded, so these essentially thread into the rack right over there. Sorry, I'm losing light, guys, I apologize. So I believe this is actually just a normal thread. It's not like reverse thread or anything. Some tie rods, like if we look at this one that's in the car, you'll see we have like a slot where you can put a wrench on it. Now for some reason, this one actually doesn't have that. So the only way we're gonna be able to get this off is with a pipe wrench. So I actually just borrowed a pipe wrench from my good friend Daniel at Post Taste Performance. You guys can check him out on Facebook. Shout out to Dan. He's the guy who tuned Miss Huff and tuned Goldie. He tunes a lot of cars, makes a lot of good power. Good guy. So yeah, he let me borrow this pipe wrench over here. If we walk over here, right here. So this is what we're gonna be using to remove this, this inner tie rod from the rack. Because if there's no, and to be honest, I don't have a wrench big enough for that slot that's the tie rod, or for the tie rod that's already in the rack. So I'm actually going to use this wrench to remove the tie rod anyways. And I'll also use it to put it back in. So what you're going to want to do, I don't know if you guys know how to use a pipe wrench, but essentially when you turn it, it actually tightens down just due to the, I don't know exactly how it works, but it works. So I'm gonna go in there and we're basically just going to get a good grip on it, and then we're gonna fucking turn it out, and it should actually just come out, because I actually had these tie rods out of the car before. If they're really seized in there, you might need to use some heat. You might need to heat it up with a torch or something like that. I believe these ones should come out pretty good, so let's see how this goes right now. Alright, so there we go. So that one loosened up pretty easy. That was in there just perfect, to be honest. You wouldn't really want too much more than that. So once she's loose, you can actually take it by hand, and this isn't going to turn the rest of the rod because it's like a ball socket sort of idea. So this will just actually spin out. Like, there's not a whole lot of thread on there, so it's honestly not too bad. So, okay. It's coming out nicely by hand, so that's pretty cool. Alright, there you go, guys. So that is the tie rod inner, just threaded out from the rack. And as we can see here, there's a bunch of play in this ball socket. You can't really see it on camera, but so that's causing a problem. Now if we look over here, we can actually just thread this whole rod out of the inner tie rod. So again, if you want to keep your alignment, you're going to want to leave this locking nut for the outer tie rod just how it is. Don't let that spin at all. So as you're spinning this out, make sure it kind of stays in its place. We're going to thread this all the way out. And then once we're done getting this out, if you have, like I said, the exact same tie rod, if you're putting in the same tie rod that came out of the car, what you're going to want to do is count the threads or take a measurement of how far this goes in. And with your new locking nut on the new tie rod, see, there you go, inner tie rod is out. You're going to want to copy the same amount of threads essentially. Now, I'm just looking at this. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to be realigning Miss Huff. It kind of got a little screwed up, and I was messing with the alignment at the track and stuff, so this isn't going to be for me, but if you guys want to keep the same alignment, leave that nut on and count the threads and do the same thing on your new tie rod as long as it's the same tie rod that you're using. Okay. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention on here, guys, is this tie rod boot. So you're definitely going to want to keep your tie rod boots on. That's going to prevent any dirt and all that grime getting into the steering rack, seals and that kind of thing. Also, it's going to protect your inner tie rod joint itself. So the boot is actually just held on, well in my case, with two zap straps. So there's going to be one on this end holding it to the rack, and then there's going to be one on this end. So I should mention this actually, the Volvos, they came with a bunch of different styles of tie rod, but there's the two actually different styles of steering rack. There's the two main ones, which is the ZF rack and the cam rack. So that's just the brand of what company made the steering racks. In this case, if you have a ZF rack like Miss Huff does, you're going to have a tie rod boot that's going to have this big rubber like donut thing, and then the tie rod boot is going to be wrapped around the donut. On the cam rack, I don't think I have an example in this garage for you, but the actual tie rod boot is going to be a lot smaller, and there's not going to be this donut here. So the tie rod boot is actually just going to wrap right around the tie rod on a cam rack. What I've found is the newer models, like 1989 plus, usually has a ZF rack. I don't think there's like a specific year that they changed, because I've seen like 91s that also had the cam rack. But for the most part, from what I've seen, is all the newer 740s, like from 89 on, and same with the 940s. Most of those had the ZF rack, and all the older cars that I've dealt with, like the 86s and 87s, even an 85, that's had the cam rack. So when you're ordering tie rods, they actually will ask that. So you're going to want to make sure what rack you have. And for sure way to tell is this tie rod boot. The ZF has the donut, and the cam rack has just the tie rod boot around the inner tie rod. So now looking at here, actually, because of this angle setup, I actually couldn't get enough adjustment, so I ended up shaving off about an inch, about a half inch, I guess, off of this tie rod inner. So that's what I'm going to do, because I wasn't able to adjust it good enough without doing that with the modified knuckles. If you have a stock knuckle setup, stock angle, you're not going to want to do that. You're going to want to leave it how it is. So what I'm going to do is, when I'm putting this back together, I guess I'll mention this, I actually use just zap straps to secure this and to secure this side to the rack. So I'm going to reinstall this, guys, and then pretty much when you're reinstalling it, you might want to put Loctite on the threads. So we're going to put Loctite on these threads going into the rack, because the last thing you want is an inner tie rod coming loose while you're driving. That is no fun. So as a safety precaution, I'm going to put Loctite on it. It's going to make it a lot easier, or a lot safer. Next time you take the inner tie rods out, it's going to be a little more of a pain, but I would rather prefer safety over a bit of a headache. I know that doesn't sound like me. Drifts and lifts, you're actually being safe for once. Oh my god. Yeah, I care about my life. Alright, so yeah, Loctite, then we're going to thread that back into the rack after I cut a little bit off of it, and make sure we put our boot on before we thread this back into the tie rod outer, obviously. Sorry, I'm kind of just rambling on, try to like get all the details of this job that I can. But all in all, super easy job. You guys are going to be able to do this by yourself, no problems. So once we get this back in, I'm actually going to install, as you guys can see, we got some badass winter tires on Miss Huff right now. So I have another pair for the front. We're going to install those on the front. We're going to try to align it. After that, I'm going to actually figure out like a headlight situation. So I think I took the bulbs out of this car. Yeah, I did. So this one's good. I'm going to have to find a lens for this one. We're going to actually try to make this car like relatively street legal. Like it's going to have signal lights and tail lights and that kind of thing. The only non-street legal thing will be, you know, there's a couple things. Yeah, no, it should be good. We're going to put an intake, air intake with a filter on it. Just kind of get this prepped, because we're going to want to do some hectic snow drifts, and it's going to be fun. So let's get it done. Alright guys, so just got this all, got the new tie rod in. So what I did was put Loctite on the threads that go into the rack here. Then I took my trusty old pipe wrench, cranked it right in there. You guys want to make sure these are really tight. You don't want an inner tie rod coming loose on you. That is not fun. I've had it happen before on an S13 actually. No fun. So I think they're really tight. I don't think that's coming out. There we go, guys. So we got the new tie rods in. We got these epic winter tires here. I'll show you guys real quick with my phone light. Someone commented on the last video and said I need to get a light for this camera, and you're so right. But this phone's going to do for now. These are the Hankook RC iPike RC01, and man, like last winter, this car just went anywhere with these tires. It was amazing. So they're like pretty much full tread. I actually got them off of some car that I owned, then I sold it with like random shitty tires. It's always good to keep the good stuff, right? Yeah, so these tires are good to go. Miss Huff is one step closer to being doing some huge ass snow drifts for you guys. I'm actually so fired up, man. I got to realign this thing after I put the tie rods in it, so I'm gonna have to fiddle around with that. It's New Year's, guys, so I'm gonna end the video right here. I'm gonna go to a friend's house and we're gonna have some shenanigans. And yeah, Happy New Year's to all you guys. So yeah, I appreciate all your guys' support. In the new year, we're gonna keep on trucking. If you guys liked the video, if this has helped you out, head over to the Drifts and Lifts store, cop some merchandise, be rocking that Drifts and Lifts Volvo Drift Pilsner in the new year. Actually, the friend that I'm going up to see right now is my man Pencil Fingers. He's the guy that does all the designs for me. So we're gonna sit down and figure out a Volvo Drift Gravy shirt. I know you guys have all been wanting that. I want it really bad too. I want to rock Volvo Gravy all over my fucking life. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much it. So what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, like everybody's in their townhouses, I'm running out of daylight here. People don't want to hear me banging away with a sledgehammer on this thing. I'm going to try to get this thing as straight as possible in the rear end. Like this side, as you guys can see, is pretty crumpled still. So I'm going to take a sledgehammer and really try to like straighten this out. And then I'm going to look up in my pile of taillights and such over here. And we're going to find some taillights. We're going to install them and hopefully you can get them working. That would be super cool. Get signal lights, get brake lights, all that good stuff. Just in case a cop pulls me over while we're doing some snow drifts. I can be like, yeah, I can drive this thing home, man. Come on, man, you know. But worst case, I'll have to get it towed. It's not the end of the world. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I'm not going to fire this thing up for you because my whole townhouse complex will hate me, like more than they already do, which isn't cool. But yeah, I don't know. That's about it, guys. Trying to think what else. I'm going to install the Recaro seat in Miss Huff, and I'm also going to put like a cool steering wheel in it. Maybe I should jimmy rig like a fake dummy bumper just to make it look like this thing has a bumper. I'm just gonna do my best to not get pulled over, because once we get pulled over, then the fun's over. So we're gonna want to, like, you know, plexi windows, like I said, this one, and I'm also gonna have to find an electric heater of some sort. So I'm thinking like a cigarette lighter heater, because I stripped all the heater and all the AC stuff out of this car. If you guys don't remember, if you're new to the channel, I got this car. It's a 740, so from the factory these things weigh about like 3,150 pounds. Miss Huff right now weighs 2350 is what I got it down, or 2380, that's what it was, yeah. So 2,380 pounds, which is like so light for a 740. Driving this car just feels so much more nimble than anything else that I've driven as far as 740s go. Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Intake, headlights, and a seat, and a steering wheel, and some plexiglass windows, and we're off to the races. This thing's gonna be good to go. I might like put a little bit of a skid plate sort of thing so I don't get so much snow up in the engine bay, but worst case, that's not a huge deal. I mean, there's nothing that it can really affect as long as it doesn't go into the distributor, etc. Yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. So like I said, Happy New Year to all of you, and thanks for your ongoing support of the Drifts and Lifts Epic Volvo Drift YouTube channel. So like and subscribe for the stinkiest of Volvo queefs. Peace out, guys.